Hello and welcome to the Nativity Podcast. I am your host, Father Ed Bresnahan, parochial vicar here at Nativity and Burke. And with me, as always, is my wonderful co-host,
Mary Castellano,
who is our social media coordinator. And boy, what a great day. This is the beginning of something new. This is an exciting time in the church, an exciting time in Nativity, using all of the technology at our disposal to glorify God and to serve his kingdom. We are joined today, season 1, episode 1. We are joined today by Mr. Jim McDaniel. And he is the director of Operation Starfish.
I help Father Bob with Operation Starfish, so you could call me the coordinator, maybe.
Coordinator,
yeah,
perfect.
So nice to be here with you.
Thank you so much for being here. We're so happy to have you, Jim.
Oh, my pleasure.
We've got a great episode in store today, but before we get started, just want to kind of throw this out for the group, find out what kinds of things are happening. Last week in my homily, one of the things that I kind of led in with to try to create a hook was the idea of trying to figure out like what kind of a traveler, people travel with, because I understand that there's just different kinds of ways that people travel. It's not always connected to our actual personality. We kind of, maybe it's either exacerbated or maybe it's a little less. Who knows what happens? But I noticed that people travel differently than they generally live. So I'm actually really curious, Mary, what kind of a traveler are you?
That's a great question, Father. I'm the kind of person who likes to have an idea of what to do when we go to a new place, to just brainstorm a few, this is a cool location to visit, or this is a great restaurant that has great reviews, or there's a nice hike that's at this place, but I don't necessarily need a specific itinerary. I don't need every minute of my day planned. And it's really nice if I travel with someone who's like that. Like, you have an idea what you want to do, but you can kind of go with the flow. But I also need someone to travel with me who's not like me at all, who's more go with the flow, because I need someone to remind me to relax. So I found that out when I studied abroad. One of my good friends who actually was a contestant on The Bachelorette, believe it or not, from
Wow.
season 15 of The Bachelorette. His name was John Paul Jones, tall, blonde hair. We were friends in college and we studied abroad together. And so a bunch of us were visiting Venice one weekend. And he's definitely the kind of sporadic person, very much go with the flow. There's a cannoli. Mary, let's go see that. I want that cannoli. Or, hey, let's go sit on the roof of San Marco in San Marco Plaza, and let's just stay up here. And I'm like, John, everyone else is going to the next stop. Are you sure? He's like, nah, let's just take this in. And we had one of the best conversations of my life. We spent 30 minutes sitting literally on the roof of this ancient basilica talking about Maryland seafood. And it was one of the best experiences of my life. But had I not, kind of been forced to relax, I wouldn't have had that experience. So
sometimes we need those people who can, I don't want to say they don't take us down a peg, but they help us kind of stay focused and grounded in reality. Mm-hmm. That's so important. Mm-hmm. Jim, what kind of a traveler are you?
That's exactly the kind of traveler I am. I'm a detail person. When I travel by plane, I go online, I print out a boarding pass. I also put the boarding pass on my phone. I have 2 printed versions in case the phone doesn't work and I lose one of the printed ones. I go online and select my room at the hotel, and I do the same thing. I'll put the phone lock thing that Hilton has so you can open your room with a phone. But I also stop by the desk and pick up a plastic key just in case. I go to Seat Guru and I pick out my seat on the airplane. I look at the seat configuration on whatever type of plane I'm flying. But sometimes that kind of detail and precision comes back to bite you. One time we were flying to Haiti, and we were flying out of National Airport in D.C., and everybody was there except Father Martin, our pastor. And I was worried, and I kept trying to text him, and he wouldn't answer my texts. And finally, my phone rang, and it was him. And he said, Jim, they won't let me on the plane. And I said, what's wrong? Where are you? He said, well, I'm here at Dulles, ready to fly with you to Haiti, but there's something wrong with the ticket. And I said, Father Martin, no, you're supposed to be here at National Airport. And it was 30 minutes before boarding. And I I just fell. I felt my stomach sink, knowing that we were going to be flying without our pastor.
Oh
And then at that moment, he came out from behind a post. And I said, no! Yes. What? So I pay a price for being a detailed planner.
It gets your nerves worked up. I can appreciate the nerves because I need people to travel with me who can handle me for the first 24 hours, right? Because the first 24 hours, all my adrenaline is going, all my energy, but I also am acutely aware that there's always going to be one thing that I forgot. I always know there's always one thing that's just missing. And so, I mean, I'll have everything ready to go. I couldn't sleep the night before. I'm ready to go, especially if I'm in charge of anything, like if I have like a group of young people that we're taking on like a band trip or something like that, or if I'm in charge of anything like that, then I'm always like, I go into kind of like mother hen mode where I'm making sure, is everybody okay? Does everybody have water? Is everything good? And most of the time, I just need somebody who can just kind of settle me down for just a minute. Father, eat a Snickers. You're not yourself. So,
Eat a Snickers.
right? It's like the commercials. You're not you when you're hungry. And so once I can get that settled moment, maybe it's on the plane, knowing that, okay, we got everybody, we're all in one piece, we're good, or we got through customs wherever we're headed, and we're like, okay, and then I'm a perfectly fine traveler. Then it's go with the flow, be able to kind of navigate. Let's see what kind of adventures are coming up. Let's see what the Lord has in store for us. But for those first 24 hours, I'm an absolute mess. so if people can handle me in that first 24 hours, then the rest of it is going to be fantastic. So you never know what you're going to get. And here we are in season one, episode 1 of our very first podcast. And we're so excited with all of this. And the reason I asked that travel question was really just because I want to get a hint into this huge thing that we do here at Nativity Parish. One of the reasons we even have this podcast in the first place is because we want to showcase the different things that are going on in our parish and how the Lord works in so many different ways, even in one little place here in Burke, Virginia. So I really wanted to kind of hone in and say, like, okay, well, what's the one sort of most recognizable, maybe the most unique thing that we have? We do a lot of things, obviously, that a lot of parishes will have in common, but I don't know that anybody has the attention, going back to the attention to detail. Not everybody necessarily has that attention to detail that we have with this incredible organization. And so we really were excited to bring Jim on to really share and talk a little bit about this mission. And the mission is called Operation Starfish. And Jim, could you tell us just a little bit about what, like why is it called Operation Starfish? What is it? What do we do?
Sure. Well, basically, it's called Operation Starfish because of the story of a man on a beach picking up starfish and throwing them back into the sea after a storm had washed them all ashore. And that was a story that Father Martin told us on our first trip to Haiti in February of 1999. And I was on that trip. And I was on that trip at first because I thought it was a coincidence. My daughter had just graduated from Marymount University with a master's in education, and she was about to start teaching. And so as a gift to her, my wife and I decided I would take her to Australia. We have family in Australia. My grandmother on my mother's side immigrated from Italy, and she and one brother came here, and 4 other brothers and sisters ended up in Australia. So we have well over 100 cousins there. And I had been to Australia. My son had been there. My wife had been there with a couple of times with me. But Jill, my daughter, had never been there. So I took her to Australia to meet her extended family, and we had a great time. Took a lot of pictures. In those days, we used film cameras. And the living siblings of my grandmother at that time gave Jill a lot of little trinkets, hand-embroidered handkerchiefs that they had made as little girls in Italy, things like that. All of those things were in one suitcase. And on the way back, sure enough, the airline lost the suitcase. No. It wasn't there when we landed at Dulles. I wasn't worried because I traveled enough to know that within 2 or 3 days, lost luggage usually is found and sent to your house. 3 days came and went, no suitcase. My daughter was in tears. All of the record of her trip and the little mementos were gone. And so at that moment, I stopped and said a prayer. And I said, Lord, if it's in your plan to find this suitcase, today would be a good day because I can't deal with this anymore. Within 20 minutes, the phone rang. It was United Airlines. They had the suitcase, and it was on the way to the house. I said, wow, what a coincidence that was. And so that Sunday...
God never does coincidences.
That Sunday at Mass, Father Martin gave a homily, and he talked about going to Haiti the next February. And he was talking about doing a mission trip to see some of the work that we had done in our first project. And so I was curious. I felt, well, maybe this is God sending me a message that I need to say thank you for the gift of the suitcase and put up my hand and go to Haiti. So I went into the office. They had one slot left, and I took it, not knowing anything about Haiti. And I was still thinking it was a coincidence. You know, all of this, it's just coincidental. Except when we left for Haiti, we stopped by Food for the Poor's office in Florida. Food for the Poor is the organization that we work with to implement our projects in Haiti. And on one of the desks, I saw a sign, and it said, "There are no coincidences in life, only steps in God's plan." And I said, wow, this is something more than a coincidence. So that was my first trip to Haiti. That was the setting for what I was later to uncover was God's plan for me, including early retirement, working full-time with Father Martin to promote Operation Starfish and get it going. Back to the story of how it got its name. On that first trip to Haiti, we went to see families living in 27 houses that we had built, that Food for the Poor had built, with money we had collected here at Nativity that previous Lent. And those families were very happy. The houses were very simple, one room, wooden structure. But it was like we had given them a new start in life. We had given them new hope. They were so appreciative, and we were so filled with joy and fulfillment at having accomplished something like that. But then we also went through Cité Soleil, which is a slum of 300,000 people living without sanitation, without clean water to drink, without decent shelter. And so that night in our reflection meeting, we were going around the table and everybody was a little depressed, saying, you know, what good is it? What difference could we possibly make? So we built 27 houses, 27 families are living a little bit better life. But there's hundreds of thousands of people just living in destitution, and they have no hope, no chance. And so at that point, Father Martin told us a story. He said there was a man walking along a beach at dawn, throwing starfish back into the water. A storm during the night had washed them up on the shore. And a little child came up to him and said, "What are you doing, old man?" And the man says, "Well, I'm throwing these starfish back in the water to try to save them." And the child says, "But look, there are thousands of them. You can't possibly save them all." And the man looked at the child, picked up another starfish, threw it in, and he said, "But I made a difference to that one." And so the light went on around the table. No, we can't solve the entire problem of poverty in Haiti, but one person at a time, we can make a difference. And someone spoke up and said, well, let's keep doing this and let's call it Operation Starfish.
And that's amazing. That is what a fantastic, like, Mary is guffawing over here. This is good. This is awesome.
I've heard this before, but just every step of that, I love how you say there's no such thing as a coincidence. It's beautiful.
Steps in God's plan. Every one of those was a step in his plan.
All steps in God's plan. And just to sort of clue our listeners in, Operation Starfish is a program through not strictly, but through Nativity in Burke that works with an organization called Food for the Poor to build houses in Haiti. And now we have a number of other programs as well. It's kind of an umbrella organization. So it's the money that we raise, and then we send missionaries. Back when it was safe to go to Haiti, we would send missionaries down there. At this point, how many houses have we built?
We have built to date 1,507 homes in Haiti.
Holy smokes.
So there are over 1,500 families living in decent shelter because of what we at Nativity have done. But you know, Father and Mary, it's more than the houses. In the beginning, we were doing small projects, and they were kind of not together. We were going where the need was the greatest. So that first year, we did 27 houses. The next year, the Archdiocese of Port-au-Prince wanted to start a mobile medical van to go out and give inoculations and health care in rural communities. And so we funded that. We provided that. The third year, an orphanage for handicapped children had burned down. And so we at Nativity rebuilt the orphanage. And then the fourth year, we started thinking, you know, this program, which we started with just Father Martin putting a simple wicker basket at the front door of the church and encouraging people to save 50 cents a day during Lent. And with that, we would do something great for the poor. This program now was up raising over $100,000 every Lent. And so working with Food for the Poor, we thought maybe we need to look at a little bit bigger impact than just these scattered one project at a time approaches. So that's when we developed the village concept. So in that fourth year, we built our first Nativity Village. And the village concept starts with housing, shelter, clean water, and sanitation. Once those needs are met, then we look at health care and education. We build a clinic, we build a school. If there's one already there, for example, there was a school run by the Parish in that first village. We expanded the school and helped them bring in more kids. And then the third element of the village concept is self-sustaining business. So we do something that creates jobs, generates revenue for the community, and helps them get on their feet. So at this point, we have completed 12 Nativity villages, and we're starting on our 13th village this year.
Wow.
13
That's
villages.
Incredible.
How have you been able to navigate this even during the pandemic? Because right now, I mean, everything is a little bit in chaos. We can't really get down there too much, but the workers are down there and able to build houses.
Yes. You know what's interesting during the pandemic, and it has to do with Father Bob's philosophy that a parish that becomes engaged with the poor becomes more generous overall. We don't really have to ask for money when it comes with helping the poor. It has become, over 23 years, it has become a part of the charism of our parish. We reach out to those in need, whether they're across the street or around the world. That's who we are. That's what brings us joy. That's what brings us closer to Christ. And so during the pandemic, the funding has not dropped at all. As a matter of fact, we had our biggest year ever in fundraising this in 2020, which was the year that the pandemic was just starting. And so the resource end of it has not been a problem during the pandemic. At the other end, yes, there have been problems. There have been some delays in construction and so forth, but Food for the Poor is very creative. So the construction has continued. What they have done is, instead of having construction crews go to a village each day and then come home at night, they put them in place for 2 weeks at a time. That way they're not risking the kidnapping and the hijacking and the things that happen on the roads going to and from our construction projects. And so the work has continued, although some things have slowed down a little bit. We had hoped to have a school completed in Nativity Village at Balan, which is our 12th village. But that school has not yet started, although all 70 houses have been finished. So, there have been some adjustments here and there. But another thing with the pandemic that we've done is we quickly pivoted to digital. And some of the parishes who have been quick at moving to a digital presence have actually seen their weekly offertory stay pretty level. In our case, we've done 2 virtual mission trips to Haiti, where using Zoom, we've had people in Haiti and people here join. And the blessing in that is that it can expand your audience. So while we're limited in person to about 15 people on a trip to Haiti, we've had 150 on our virtual mission trips.
Wow. And that lets people go on a mission who ordinarily might not, for health reasons or whatever, might not be able to go. Yeah. We often say sometimes in the mission business that some give by going and then others go by giving, that there's a way of participating in the mission by offering from your resources to help somebody who's able to be on the ground and who's able to do the things, whereas maybe a person who doesn't necessarily have a lot of resources but has perhaps time, strength, vitality, and is able to kind of put some of those to use on the ground and helping. But I imagine a virtual tour would help. A virtual mission would be able to help bring a lot of those different people together.
It does, and it also assists in the encounter. And before we get too far down the road of fundraising, I have learned over the years that Operation Starfish is really not a fundraiser. It's a ministry. It's a way to facilitate an encounter between us and the poor. And that encounter is so important because it provides benefits to both. In becoming engaged with the poor, in meeting people, in seeing them, in holding their hands and talking with them, whether in person or virtually, you make a connection person to person. And that connection is something that Pope Francis talks about often. And it's that connection that creates an awareness of, you start to understand what poverty is like, who are the poor people, what do they look like, how do they sound, how much are they like me, except that I was born here and they were born in Haiti. And then from that awareness, you develop a movement in your heart. It starts as compassion, it grows into empathy, you start feeling the pain that they feel. And then from that, the Holy Spirit moves you to some kind of action. And it's that action, I mean, it could be writing a check, but it also can be praying. Praying is active connecting with people. It can be volunteering. It could be making birth kits for midwives. You know, there's so much action beyond writing a check that comes out of the encounter. And,
especially here, right? In this case, someone inspired by the work of Operation Starfish actually used that inspiration, that action, that encounter you were talking about to start her own gold project, right? I think it was for Girl Scouts.
Right.
The gold is like they're the highest level that they achieve, and so in order to do that, you have to do some sort of a thing that assists and helps where there is a need. You have to describe a plan, write a plan, and then accomplish this. And so I believe part of Stella Marina came out of that.
Yes. From Operation Starfish, two outgrowths have occurred. One is Fish for Hope. This is a group of parishioners who are young business, mostly business people who are very savvy with modern ways of communicating and so forth. And they wanted to really focus on the business side, the self-sustaining part of our project. So they looked at fish farming and they worked with Food for the Poor. They've built 3 fish farming villages in Haiti, including housing and so forth for the people. And those businesses produce freshwater fish 3 times a year, and they sell them, and they reinvest some of the profits into the business, and they distribute other profits in the community. The second outgrowth was Stella Marina, and this came from 2 Nativity parishioners. Both mothers, both had very difficult childbirths, had almost died, had almost lost children in childbirth. And when they came to Haiti with us and saw how many children die from simple infections in the childbirth process, how many moms die because of preeclampsia and other complications, they came back and And again, through the discernment process, the prayer process, the Holy Spirit moved them to start an organization that focused on mothers and babies. And what that has turned into is a program that provides education and supplies to midwives in Haiti who deliver most of the babies. And working with Food for the Poor and Dr. Eugene Macklin at New Hope Hospital, he does a training program for 150 midwives every 2 months, supported by Stella Marina. And Stella Marina has made thousands of birth packets, simple kits that the midwives use in the birth process. It's as simple as a sheet of plastic to put something between the mom and the dirt floor to prevent infection. It's a little plunger to clean out the nostrils and the throat so that mucus and so forth doesn't stay in there and create an infection. And other little tools and things that make it easier for them to work.
It's amazing how something as simple as hygienic tools, or even just some simple things that are fresh pads, fresh pieces of, like you said, plastic, can make all the difference between life and death for a little child in those vulnerable moments. What a powerful witness, and a witness, like you said, to be able to the outgrowth of what happens when there's an encounter, when you look and you see you feel that need, and you'd be able to experience a little bit and say, well, wait a minute, there is something I can do. And it's not just thoughts and prayers. I have thoughts and prayers are essential. I imagine that Starfish wouldn't exist without the prayers of many. But also it's more than just throwing money at a problem. It's about being able to encounter and walk with. And I think there's something really powerful and Christ-like about that. Christ doesn't just snap his fingers and solve problems, right? He walks on that journey with people.
It's also incredible to me how all of this started, Jim, with a very simple yes. Your yes, Father Martin's yes, the women from Stella Marina, their yes, and the Fish for Hope. It all started with a simple yes. I've been inspired. I see a need. I've been inspired to do this. How can I help? Let me just one yes at a time. I love that.
Yeah, and the power of one. You can't solve the entire problem. Sometimes, if you spend too much time thinking about the big problem, you get paralyzed and you do nothing. But if you think about that one baby, that one family in a shelter, that one mom who, when you give her the keys, she looks at you and she says, "I thank God for bringing you to me." The faith lesson there is so clear. She knows it's not me. She knows it's God. And I was the tool that God used to bring her the keys to the house. There's so many blessings that come out of that encounter for us, as well as the people that we help.
Amen. What a great thing. Where do you see Operation Starfish going in the future? I mean, it has to be bright. There has to be so much to look forward to.
Yeah. Well, I've been associated with this work for 23 years now. It's been an incredible period of time of watching how beautiful God can work when people, as Mary says, say yes to him and take that first step. But I'm getting to a point now where I've got lots of gray hair and a few aches and pains here and there. And so I'm looking at the generations coming behind me, and I'm seeing really talented and dedicated people who have come to Haiti with us, who have started new programs. Here at Nativity, our college and young adult group has started a regular mission trip to Jamaica. On the first mission trip, they built a house for a family in Jamaica. And they have also started a medical scholarship program for young students in Jamaica who want to be doctors. And we provide scholarship assistance. We've graduated 2 now. We have one in process and another one coming behind. We're also looking at starting that kind of a program in Haiti. But these younger people in our parish now are stepping forward. They're taking responsibility, and I'm very happy about that. And my job, as I see it right now, is to facilitate the next generation stepping in and allow me to step back and coach from the bench and let them play the plays. So that's sort of where I see the future. In terms of the work itself, one of the most exciting things we're doing with Food for the Poor is taking that village concept and adding measurement and evaluation, more sophisticated, more professional ways of looking at what we're doing and evaluating whether it's effective. So, for example, in the last village we did, and in this next one, we do a baseline survey before we start any work. We take a snapshot of where the community is in terms of jobs, income, health, how much childbirth, death rates, and food, nutrition, malnutrition. We assess all of that, and we have a baseline to measure from. And then as we go through the work, and then for 5 years after the project is completed, we do an annual assessment so that along the way, we can tell with metrics whether we're actually bringing people out of poverty or not. Mm-hmm. That's an exciting new way of looking at the work that we're doing and providing something that I think the generations coming after us are looking for, more sort of objective evaluation and data.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
That's amazing. And really also just a testament to how to adapt, I think, right? To maintain that the beauty of that encounter, while still recognizing that different people and as time goes on, new generations discover that encounter slightly differently. Right. We live in a much more data-driven society. People looking for those kinds of answers to be able to, it resonates differently. Mm-hmm. And so I think being able to translate that data into, but also here's the encounter that's happening. Here's where you have the opportunity to meet Christ. Mm-hmm. It's just a powerful thing.
And, that's what it's all about. And, I'm very excited to see what Pope Francis is saying about the Synod coming up. He kicked it off this past weekend, and in his homily he talked about encounter and how by encountering each other we bring each other closer to Christ.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot to look forward to. How can the average Nativity parishioner or anybody who's listening to our podcast, how can they get in touch with or discover Operation Starfish?
We are active. We have a great website. It's operation-starfish.org, or you can reach us through the church website, nativity.org, nativityburke.org, yep. And then link to Operation Starfish from there. We also have a very active social media presence. We have 885 people in our Operation Starfish group on Facebook, and that's where we provide more regular updates on what we're doing. We also have a Facebook group called Father Martin Inspires, and this goes back to our former pastor who started Operation Starfish, and we sort of keep him working even as he's no longer with us physically, by using his homilies, his pastor's corners, his messages and stories about him to keep inspiring people to make that connection with those who need us.
What an amazing legacy.
I know. I never even met Father Martin. I only came here just a couple years ago. But I mean, even just hearing you talk about him, hearing other people talk about him, or, it brings me chills and goosebumps just because of his legacy. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but he was the one who had the original idea to help out and help the people in Haiti. Is that correct?
Another one of those Holy Spirit stories, I think. In 1998, he was out walking his dog just before Lent, and he was a little bit frustrated, I guess, with this tendency we as Catholics have to give up something for Lent, and then that's sort of the end of the story. He wanted to write another chapter on that story, and so he was thinking, well, what if people gave up one order of French fries every day during Lent, or had one less topping on a pizza, and maybe save 50 cents a day? What would that generate, and how could we use that to make a difference in the lives of the poor? And so he brought the idea to the parish that next Sunday. Everybody thought it was a great idea. He put a little basket at the back of the church, and at the end of Lent, 1998, we had $67,000 in that basket.
Jimini's.
Oh my God.
And that's what started Operation Starfish with the first 27 houses.
Wow.
And so the first mission trip also came as a little bit of a interesting twist, because he thought that was a one-time thing in his mind. And so the next winter, people were coming to him and saying, well, we're going to do it again, Father. And he says, well, I'm not sure. Maybe we ought to go down and see what they did with our money before we make that decision. And that's what led to the first trip to Haiti.
Wow.
So it was more of a, he wanted to verify,
Sure.
that this was a good thing to do. And then the second year, people came back from that trip. There was excitement. They talked about it. He had people talk at Mass about what they experienced in their encounters with the people in Haiti. And that next year, it was 90,000. And then the third year was 110,000. And at this point, it's $7.4 million.
Total collection.
Total collection.
Yeah.
Total.
You've raised
Operation
$7.5 million
Yeah.
for housing and sustainable life, basic medical kits, health, and then just everything from feminine hygiene to like you said, fish farming. Mm-hmm. It's a little bit of everything, all geared towards making a difference in one person at a time.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. What a powerful.
Let me just share a little something that Father Martin wrote. And he was talking, this is from a pastor's corner in 2014. And he was talking about what a difference one parish can make. And he said, I used to think that the poor were powerless and that we were on a one-way street bringing aid to them. Over the years and through many journeys to Haiti, however, I have found that we are actually traveling a two-way street. Yes, we bring our resources to bear on the extreme needs and the brutal poverty, but we also receive gifts and benefits from the poor. I have learned that the powerlessness of the poor can be transformed by God into incredible power in a parish like ours. The power of an encounter.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. What a great way for our parish! What a great way to kick off our podcast to really bring on this idea, and really this is going to be a goal for us over the next couple of seasons as we start to bring these out, is to really see how Christ is being encountered in so many different ways, and beautifully and primarily in our service and outreach and encounter with the poor, and the idea that God is never going to be outdone in generosity. He's never going to be outdone in generosity. You give him your heart, he gives you his, and that's a powerful image. And it doesn't cost anything to give of yourself. And I think that image, certainly with you, Jim, just being able to give of yourself for 23 years in service to this great mission. And our parish has definitely blossomed and bloomed because of it, and because of like you said earlier, you said as an instrument, right? It's because of what the Lord has done in us. And that's where we can be truly grateful.
We are his hands and feet.
We've been blessed with two wonderful pastors these past few years. Father Martin and Father Bob both understand that heart-head connection and put it to work for the poor.
Absolutely. So I have to ask, we're gonna have a theme and a tradition on this podcast from forever, because when you're a member of the parish, there's something that's beautiful, that every time you show up, it's a new encounter with Christ. But there's also something nice about our faith that's very familiar, and people tend to be creatures of habit. So we want to hone in on that one little aspect that happens to be a little creature of habit that tends to happen in a church. So our question is very simple. Where do you sit in the church? Where's your seat?
My seat is in the the middle section, about 3 rows from the aisle that separates the front section from the back section. So my seat in the church is a seat of humility. I'm there. I'm in the midst of it. I'm not in the back. I'm not in the front. I'm with the people.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. I think that says a little bit of it. You strike me as a man who likes to just be in the middle of it, but not the center of attention. There's a big difference between those two things. Definitely. You want to be in the thick of it, but you don't. We don't always want to be. We don't want to be the center. We want to figure out like how to reflect God's love in that. So that's fantastic.
You can get a lot more done in this world if you don't worry about who gets the credit.
Amen. Amen.
Absolutely. We're all his instruments. I love how you said that. I think that's a really important point that I would want people to kind of remember coming from this is he works through us. It's not about us. It's not about any one of us individually. It's about the Lord and his will, serving his people, spreading his gospel. And so long as we just say that, yes, we be open, then, amazing work can be done. And I love how Allison often will keep the basket. I think it's the original basket that Father Martin had. She'll keep it in her office, one of our colleagues. And I sometimes I'll be doing work in her office and I'll look at this basket thinking to myself, of all the work that you all have done, like such amazing change can come from one basket. Yeah. I mean, it's just that one yes, just being open to God's will. It's incredible the work that you, Jim, have helped to facilitate, and this entire parish. I mean, for listeners who didn't listen to our previous pilot episode, I am not a parishioner. I did not grow up here. And so I kind of came in just a few years ago learning about this amazing ministry, and I'm still blown away. I love telling people who aren't from here, not from Virginia or from Maryland, where I'm from, about this ministry. And everyone's jaws just drop whenever they hear about it. So I love sharing the good work, the good news that has come from this mission. And yeah, we're so grateful for you, Jim.
Well, thank you, and I'm very grateful and excited about the podcast and the direction it's taking, and the fact that even beyond the pandemic, we continue to move forward with a digital presence, and we can reach so many more people. And I'm so happy, Mary, that I said yes to you.
Yeah,
we're so glad. We are grateful as well. It has been an absolute joy and a privilege, really, to be able to have you on our show and to be able to kick this off, I think, the right way of being able to say, we're going to try to encounter Christ as best we can and be open to what God is doing in our lives and sharing that. And we know that so many people learn and listen differently. Some people it's through video. For some people it's through study or reading, and then for some people increasingly in our world it's the idea of simply listening to podcasts and other things. And there's a million things that you could listen to, but we're glad you've tuned in to us to say, I wonder what God is going to be sharing with me today in this podcast. We're happy to be able to be his instruments in that way. Jim, it's been an absolute joy to have you on the show. We look forward to hearing more about what's going on. And Mary, do we have any shout outs?
Oh man, I have to give a shout out to our awesome pastor, Father Bob, for saying yes to allowing us to venture into the podcast land, as I've heard some people call it. Thanking
podcast land.
That's what I've heard some people in different podcasts say that. I think it's really cute. So yeah, just want to thank Father Bob for his leadership, his generosity, his openness to try new things. And as you like to say, what do you like to say, Father? Throw it at the wall and see what sticks.
Throw it at the wall and see what sticks. I love it. Try everything. If God doesn't want it to work, it's not going to work. Then you can move on. Try something else. It's not like he doesn't want you to work. He's got things for you. Trying to figure out what it is he wants from you. And I think sometimes people can be in that little holding pattern where they kind of wonder, like, well, I'm waiting for God to say something to me about what to do. So no. Try everything. And the things that bring you peace, the things that bring you joy, the things that bring fruit, like those kinds of things are probably the little bit of an indication that God might be leading you somewhere. Could be hard, could be easy, but it is what it is. Oh my goodness. Well, we are so glad to have you guys. A special thanks again to Jim McDaniel from Operation Starfish for joining us today. And we wish all of you, our wonderful listeners, just the best and the most wonderful time if you have questions, concerns, people in the parish you'd like to hear from, hear about. If you like what you hear, if you have constructive and charitable criticism for us, we're always happy to listen to that. And be assured of our prayers in the meantime. You can always get a hold of us via the Nativity Parish website and follow all of our things on social media. We have an Instagram, we have a Facebook page, we have a little bit of everything for you. And we look forward to hearing from you in the future. Please don't forget to like and subscribe on our Spotify, and that way you can always be updated on all of our newest editions, especially when new episodes of our podcast come out. Until then, I'm Father Bresnahan.
And I'm Mary Castellano.
And we are so grateful for everything that you guys are. Thanks, and God bless you.